Melton is absent. Palermo. Rowe. Bigley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the pledge, and I'll provide today's remarks. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'm pinch hitting for Councilmember Melton, who can't be with us this afternoon. So I'll simply say happy birthday to my nephew and my sister. It's both their birthdays today. Daniel Crawford turning 18 and Elsa Festerson turning 48. I hope they have a good day. It's my sister. Of course I'm going to say how old she is.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here and look forward to your testimony on our many items today. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones to vibrate, or even turn them off would be even better. Madam Clerk.
One public hearing can be held for items 6 through 8 and 11 for the Builders District 3 located southwest of 15th and Mike Fahey Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 6, an ordinance to rezone this property from DS to CBD. Item 7 and 8, resolutions to approve the preliminary plat and final plat. Item 11, a resolution to approve the 1501 Mike Fahey Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan in an amount up to $5,683,600.
So we can have one public hearing on all these items, but we'll have two votes. One vote on items 6, 7, 8, and one vote on item 11, correct? Thank you. Today is the public hearing on vote on these items. Proponents, please.
Mike Fahey, located in the north part of the Central Business District at southwest of 15th and Mike Fahey, just south of the new Kiewit building. This would be a new construction mixed-use development, about 117,000 square feet of building. It'll include 85,000 square feet of office, 10,000 square feet of food and beverage, 14,000 square feet of retail and commercial, retains about 200 jobs, creates about 230 new jobs. The developer is Nodal BD1 LLC. The site plan. This is a $56.8 million TIF project. They're asking for $5,683,600 in TIF support. It is in an EBA, an extremely blighted area, so it's a 20-year TIF term. It's also in the streetcar influence area. This means they will be contributing a portion of the TIF revenues to the streetcar system. This meets the criteria for the TIF program. It's an appropriate land use for the area. We ask for your support.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
Ted Zetzman, 2285 South 67th Street with Nodal Companies on behalf of the applicant. And so just to add a little more background to this, this is an additional phase, a second phase that was contemplated as part of the original Builders District redevelopment plan that was approved by City Council in 2018. So as promised, additional building, and here it is. And it is probably the first of several buildings, projects that we plan to bring forward to you within the Builders District in the coming months. So we're excited about what's going on here. As Don mentioned, the kind of overall scale of the building, 4 stories. A couple of special features. I'll mention that it does include, as well, this is the mass hybrid mass timber building. So it includes both of those, which is unique in our market to be one of the first. And it does also feature some decks that face on the 3rd floor that face Mike Fahey Street, as well as the public plaza areas that you can see. So there are some nice amenities to the building and facing the public as well. And I did one clarification. I know that Don mentioned the 20-year extremely blighted, but our TIF for the development portion is 15 years. So, and we're available to answer any questions regarding the TIF or the plat as well.
Thank you. Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. This overall plan project seems to be very outstanding, unique, and definitely much of an investment to the city of Omaha as a whole. When we look at the opportunities, that creation of jobs, definitely something that I'm very much passionate about. I can't help but recognize that outstanding sound of rejoice. Without further ado, I move that we approve this. Thank you.
That's a motion for items 6 through 8.
Yes, 6 through 8.
And a second. Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I'll also be supporting this today. The development that's gone on for years down there with Millworks to the north and Creighton University to the west, this is another welcome anchor to that neighborhood. And as that grows in the years to come, I think this is going to be a great part of it, so I'll be supporting this today. Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
And is there a motion on number 11?
Motion to approve. Thank you.
Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Item 9, a resolution to approve the Exarban Senior Living Phase 3 Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 1510 South 70th Street in an amount up to $1,108,000.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. Exarban Senior Living is located on Pine Street, just a little bit east of South 72nd Street and west of Exarban Village. It's actually an additional third phase will be added on to an existing facility. This will be a 3-story new construction multifamily structure with 30 units, be senior living, senior apartments. The LLC developer is managed by Chaz DeVetter. This is a $12.9 million TIF project. They're requesting $1,108,000 in TIF support. Have another rendering. This is an appropriate land use for the area, meets the criteria of the city's TIF program, and is consistent with the city's master plan. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents today.
Michael C. Carter, 11506 Nicholas Suite 3, 68154. I'm just here on behalf of the developer to answer any questions that are available to you. We're excited to expand the facility as we feel the need for it, and we're here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm generally against TIF, particularly where it says city's participation. But I have some questions that we like to ask, but we never get answers on, and I'm only complaining about the transparency of the whole operation. This area is a rather large area. It sounds like there's maybe 2 different areas, but these 2 items together are that old big complex that used to be a water park, a hotel, Holiday Inn, and everything on 72nd and Grover. If you drive that area, it's probably a 2 or 3 block area in all directions. But it started out not very long ago as just a small thing for a hotel supply building. And now that whole area is going to be like this, big TIF. It's many other things, including a couple of other hotels that went in there. So I just don't think the transparency of all these projects together are good enough for the citizens. The reason I say that is there's obviously some problems with the TIF project at the crossroads. It seems to be at a standstill or not progressing at hardly any at all, like they usually do. Matter of fact, as I drive around some of these, Some of these projects appear to be underway before we have the hearing and vote. In other words, if I went out and looked at this today, I would probably see the holes are already prepared. The buildings are gone, the holes are prepared, and this is just a formalization today. And if it isn't, you come back next week with an amendment of the hole to change it anyway, and we don't get a chance to vote on it then, because it's a done deal. So I'm only saying, if what I say is not correct, not true, not factual, then prove me wrong and open it up to a lot more transparency. Explain to us why the Crossroads is not progressing, and is this gonna happen at 72nd and Grover? Thank you.
Any other opponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. I'll just say that although this is Councilmember Bagley's district, I'm very supportive of this project. I've had a lot of personal experience with this particular facility in the last 3 years, and they did a great job of taking care of my mom, and so I'm pleased to see them with their expansion plans. Another 30 units is badly needed here and in the community for these services, and Crossroads is in fact proceeding and planning to have a portion of that property be senior living as well, which I think is a very important use for the families in our community. No further lights. Is there a motion? Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Item 9 is approved 6-0. Item 10, a resolution to approve the Xarban Keys Apartments Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 6952 Grover Street in an amount up to $6,573,639.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. Just a clarification, the Xarban Senior Housing is about a mile north of this site. This is a site that is on the Cocoa Keys, former Cocoa Keys development site. This is a new construction project for a 4- and 5-story apartment building. We're looking at 255 market rate apartment units. There are significant public improvements involved to Haskell and South 70th Street, about $370,000 in public improvements. The building will have 160 parking stalls inside and about 135 surface stalls. The development LLC is managed by Ryan Spellman and Jim Royer. This project is a $62 million TIF project. The TIF request is for $6,573,639 in TIF program support. Again, this is an appropriate use for the area. Complies with the city's master plan, meets the criteria for the TIF program. Incidentally, it's on the north half of this 8-acre site. They're going to subdivide that into 2 pieces. And anyway, we ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents today of number 10.
Good afternoon, Ryan Spellman, 9951 Harney Parkway North. I'm one of the co-developers of this project. I appreciate the council's consideration today. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I will say in response to the gentleman who spoke earlier, we are not seeking any TIF dollars for demolition. That was all conducted by another out-of-town developer prior to our purchase of the property, just for clarification. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Ryan, you don't have to get up, but as I remarked before, I appreciated you taking the time to reach out and walk through the questions that I had on this project. And as a local, born and raised here in Omaha, not too far away from this project, I know this is a welcome addition to that 72nd Grover corridor. So again, I appreciate your work and the outreach you did to people that had questions. I'll be supporting this, make a motion to approve this today. Thanks.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Aye. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 12, a resolution to approve the Dizzy Mule Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 1218 Izzard Street in an amount up to $5,041,558.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. I believe the Millwork Commons development was mentioned by Councilman Begley in relationship to the 1501 Fahey project. Yeah, there's a lot going on in north downtown Omaha, and that's good. This project is located within the Millwork Common District, and it's known as the Dizzy Mule Project. Involves an L-shaped site of about 1 acre, comprised of 4 parcels. 3 of those are vacant. There's another perspective. One of them involves a historic building, brick building. That building will be rehabilitated as part of this project. And then the new construction, the L-shaped site again. The new construction will attach to either side of the rehabbed historic building. This is the existing building. It's being designed to look like 6 buildings, kind of to fit in with the context of the Millwork Commons area, but it'll function as a single building. This is a large mixed-use building of about 5 stories, 172 market rate apartment units, and about 18,000 square feet of first floor commercial and retail space. It's being developed by a partnership of Black Dog Development, managed by Paul G. Smith, and Bluestone Development, managed by Deborah and Christian Christensen. This project is an investment in this part of downtown of $34.6 million. They're asking for $5,041,558 in TIF support. Another perspective. This is in an extremely blighted area. It's a 20-year TIF term, although the last 5 of that goes towards the streetcar, because it's also in the streetcar district. Project meets the required criteria of our TIF program. It's an appropriate land use for the area. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Larry Jobin, 11440 West Center Road, appearing on behalf of the applicant. With me today is Deborah and Christian Christensen. We're really just here to answer any questions that you might have. I think Don did a fine job of presenting the proposed project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
Did we give our address, Mr. Frederickson?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson and Question Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. Actually, I was looking at, is this yours, sir? Because
Hey,
what
Don, your address?
Oh, I'm sorry,
Got it.
4928 North 52nd, and I was working on why Nebraska Lincoln's going south for football and losing a lot of money, and I'm trying to figure out if we're gonna stay on that course.
I wish you had the answer to that question, too.
And so I noticed that we don't have Ross's Steakhouse. Exarban was a great program, and they sold out to all these different programs. We don't have Anthony's anymore. But if you folks willing to give those folks down there all that money, would you be willing to put a Fox and Hound restaurant in North Omaha so we can be a part of all this progress? So I noticed those folks who are gonna come in here and live in that beautiful building at Mutual of Omaha, they want some fancy apartments. So you can jack the rent up as far as you want for those New Yorkers, especially the Getty family. And the Gambinos, charge them $20,000 a day because they're already in trouble. I learned that study at the United Nations in New York. Omaha is growing, but we're losing at the same time. And there's folks coming in after that Mutual Omaha building is built, which is gonna be a beautiful building under Mr. Marlon Perkins. They want a fancy place to live in. Tell them that if they put a Fox and Hound and get us a medical marijuana license, we'll be happy to support it.
Okay. Any other opponents today on number 12? Public hearing's closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm very excited about this huge investment in District 2. I've had the opportunity to meet with the Christensen, and they've done an excellent job with engaging the community, and I have seen their vision to reflect in the inclusion of that particular area. So I would be in total support of this, and I move to approve this. Thank you.
I'll second that. I might just ask the Christensens to come up too, or Larry, or whoever would like to answer a few follow-up questions. I agree with Councilmember Johnson. This is a great project, and I'm glad you highlighted the architecture and how that's going to appear there, and the kind of the unique design for Millbrook Commons. Could you also talk a little bit about the alleyway there? And then I also want you to talk about our discussion on the affordable housing units and how you're handling that.
Deborah Christensen, 5110 Mayberry Street with Bluestone Development. We are the co-developers with Black Dog and Paul Smith. The alleyway you're referring to, this is a perfect picture of it actually. So this is if you were standing on 12th Street looking west. So the building is going to be L-shaped. Actually, let me put up a different one. So this alley right here and then up here. So the project is actually right here. This is going to be an activated alley. The hot shops are right here. The master plan talks about this area having an arts influence. So this alley will be activated, and then this picture shows you what it'll look like. It'll have retail, arts, some studios that go down, and if you can look all the way straight through there to the hot shops.
Yeah, I think that's a great feature. And then talk about some of how you're going to offer affordable units to artists and how you're going to handle that.
Yeah, so we're working on a pilot project right now at the Hello Apartments, which are also in Millwork Commons that we just finished. We're looking to do about 5% of our units in that kind of workforce housing, missing middle, 60 to 80% of AMI. We're doing a pilot project with philanthropic funds right now to see how we can get some of those people who are in that middle area where maybe they wouldn't normally be able to afford our apartments, get them maxed at a certain amount based on their income, and then we've got philanthropy coming in to cover the rest of it to get a more diverse group of people living in our buildings. And and I'm assuming that project will be successful, and then we are going to carry that through to the other projects that we're doing in Millwork Commons, including this one.
Excellent. I think those are really great features to highlight here today. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Deborah, I too had the pleasure to meet with you and Christian, and you laid out the plans of this, and it's even better seeing it on a big TV like I'm looking at in front of me here today. In the affordable units, I'll echo what Council President Fesserson said. I appreciate your efforts in that because, you know, if a school teacher, and you mentioned different salaries of people that may now be able to afford that with the assistance it is going to be provided. And that is really in Councilmember Johnson's district. It's a beautiful area that's just taken off, and I've been there several times, and I'm looking forward to, again, with the project we approved earlier, and this one just in the north of it, on how that part of town has really taken off. And I know when we had the coffee, there was a pastry shop that I didn't get to sneak into next to the coffee we were having. I'll look forward to getting over there, and don't tell the Olson's Bake Shop that I want to sneak in there. But I'll look forward to approving this today, and thanks for your outreach and the education you guys provided. I think it's going to be a great area, and the art up there, that's another great part of many of it. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now for the lights, there's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 13, a resolution to approve the Flats on Howard Expansion Tax Increment Financing Redevelopment Project Plan located at 2240 Landon Court and 2323 Howard Street in an amount up to $3,229,403.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning Department. Flats on Howard Expansion TIF project is located southeast of 24th and Howard. It's a pair of adjoining parcels. One is presently a surface parking lot. The other is occupied by a building that had been previously used by the Nebraska Urban Indian Health Center. That facility is moving or has moved. The existing structure will be demolished, and a new structure of 6 stories, an apartment building with 120 market rate rental units will be constructed, kind of this J-shaped configuration. There will be apartment units on the 3rd through 6th floors. On top of 2 levels of parking, there'll be about 132 stalls inside the building. Leasing office and workout facility will also be on the first 2 floors. This project, again, is in an extremely blighted area. It's eligible for a 20-year term for TIF, and that is what is being approved. It's also in the core urban core mobility area, so the TIF proceeds will also, there will also be a contribution of TIF proceeds to the cost of developing the streetcar system. The developer is 2323 Howard Street LLC, managed by Todd Husted. Total project investment in this part of downtown is about $27.9 million. They're requesting $3,229,403 in TIF support. Project meets the required criteria of our TIF program. It's an appropriate land use for the area, and it complies with the goals of the city's master plan. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Todd Heaston, 2223 Dodge Street, with New Style Development. I'm here to answer any questions you might have on the project.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 14, to consider a Class C liquor license for Ikasan Ramen located at 17305 Davenport Street, Suite 105.
Public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Jose Dionisio with Ikasan Ramen, 15333 Davenport Circle. Here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. I'll second that. Jose, I'll just engage you for 1 second here. Thanks for coming back. I think you were here last week, but we had a long meeting, and so we wanted to have this one laid over to have a quick discussion with you. My only question for you is, your current ramen place is going to stay in Benson, right? This is a second location?
This is actually a 4th location.
All right.
Yeah, so yeah, we definitely stay in Benson. That's home for us, so yeah.
Well, we're happy to share your Benson success with everybody else. It's a great place.
Yeah, we're really happy to expand this way and still keep our original locations open. So.
And where are the other 2 locations?
Well, we have one in downtown, one in Papillion, and now this one in Village Point.
Great, thanks. Happy to support it. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 15, to consider a Class C liquor license for Victor's Mexican Restaurant 2, located at 2910 K Street, Suite D. A's Communication opposition.
Public hearing and vote on number 15 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, members of the council. Sean Kelly, 2804 South 87th Avenue. Appearing on behalf of the applicant today. A couple items on this application. First, there was opposition, as the city clerk noted. We've since amended the application. The opposition stemmed from potential off-sale or to-go drinks. While that's not a big portion of this restaurant's business, it was easy to amend the application and just do on-sale or on-premise only. And secondly, came to our attention the original Victor's, which has some shared ownership but not the same applicant, had some back payment due to the city. We've since resolved that, or at least efforts are being made. I know there was some contact with the city finance department, so I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Kelly, I know you have one of the owners with you.
I do, yes.
I got a couple questions for you if you'd come up, and you just have to give your name and address.
Hi, my name is Desea Chatanawong. Can't even see my last name right. It's 4131 X Street.
It happens.
Yeah.
It happens. But you got to get this next question right, though.
Okay, sir.
It's very important on this vote. So I want to thank you for staying within the district, growing your business. Obviously, you've been in business a while, so pretty successful. How many years have you been?
My partner has actually been in business. I'm not a part of that business, but they've been in business about, I want to say 14 years.
Okay.
We're hoping for this next restaurant to kind of replicate the same menu items, maybe switch it up a little more seafood, but definitely lots of tacos.
Sure. Give me your top 3 tacos.
Al pastor, lengua, y buche. I love those. Well, those are my favorite.
Okay. We'll take 3 each.
Eat. I should have brought some tacos today.
That's what we always hope for. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much.
I'll motion to approve. Yep, to the amendment, to the C. Yep.
So motion and a second. Mr. Harding, your light on? Yep, go ahead.
I just wanted to note Mr. Kelly brought the issue up, but I was told that the finance department did receive a check for a little over $12,000 to make up for that, what they were in the arrears for on their restaurant tax. So thank you.
Thank you. No further lights on the amendment. Roll call.
And just to clarify, it's an amend to a Class I.
Amend from to the Class I.
Yes. Okay. Palermo. Okay. Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
As amended.
Yes.
Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 16, to consider a special designated liquor license application for the Broke Down Palace located at 8805 Maple Street for an outdoor music concert on October 6th through 8th from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. with music until midnight each night, alternate date of October 9th.
Public hearing and vote on number 16 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, Ross Coley, 51503, area code 329 Frank Street, Council Bluffs.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Still haven't got that answer. I think it's going to come out of the doghouse or not. I'm working on it. Donnie Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation, 4928 North 52nd Street. Again, Mr. Begley, when Exarban, you was probably not born when Exarban was making all that money out there and they sold all their process. That's why we're trying to bring this to you folks' attention, how all these things have left and coming and gone. So you folks can take the money and invest it that way. I've asked the Fox and Hound to come down here and ask you folks to give them some money to help build a Fox and Hound restaurant in North Omaha.
So Donnie, we're talking about a liquor license in Benson, right?
Right, so that's why I'm glad you asked me that. If you're going to keep giving people liquor license so they can lose their liver, would you take in consideration some of this TIF money to look into medical marijuana? Because we don't want to stop these folks. We want them to drink if that's what they like. But we also got to keep in mind they said no casinos in Nebraska, but they are doing it. So we would like for some time to be focused on North Omaha and give us some access to some money and development.
Thank you. Any other opponents on number 16 today? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. I'll just say I'm very supportive of the licensor. They've always done a great job with your events, no complaints.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yeah, anything you want to offer up about it?
Yeah, so this is a kind of a biannual thing that's grown over, it's to be our 5th year coming up. So slowly grown event. It's a 3-day outdoor concert. We have a pretty large parking lot that we share with a couple other tenants. So it's kind of our back cove area. And the community seems to enjoy it. I know we had an issue with one of our neighbors maybe 2 years ago on an event, which has been resolved with them, and that's the only one I've ever been made aware of. So, yeah.
Great.
Yeah, go Benson.
Yeah, well, come check it
I
out.
got them down there too.
I'll second. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by the City Council Rules of Order.
The public hearing on agenda items 17 and 18 was held on September 13th. Motion and a second. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
We've had a request to remove items 24, 25, and 27 and 28 from the consent agenda on the next portion of our agenda. So we'll take those items separately. First, we'll take the public hearings on agenda items 19 through 23, 26, 29 through 33. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent.
Good afternoon. Item number 19, 6819 Giles Road. I'm John Milam, so I'm here representing Come and Go, and I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thank you. Any other speakers on these items?
Could you repeat those numbers again, sir?
19 through 23, 26, and 29 through 33.
Thank you, sir.
Just wait for that, but you can- have the public hearing, and you can request a separate vote.
Hi, Deb Sander, City Human Resources, for item number 30. I also have with me Jake Behrens and Mary Pollocky, who helped in assessing and choosing the vendor for this particular item. Here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Other speakers on these items? Seeing none, the public hearings are closed. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Deb, if I could, you're right there. It's handy. Agenda item 30. So I had asked a question, and sorry, you need to give your name and address.
Deb Sander, City Human Resources Department.
Got ahead of myself. So I asked the question at 10:30. Obviously, you're asking for an outside company to make recommendations for the vacancy we have for this position. And my question was, did we go this route for the previous opening? And so that would be my question.
We did not, no.
Okay. So I find myself in the same boat as I feel about many city items where I believe in your department and I believe in your employees, and I know you do, otherwise they wouldn't work for you. And I feel you could do this in-house, and I feel there's adequate people in the city of Omaha that could do this job, just like we found the last person without a search. And so, without taking a poll, I'm sure I stand alone. I'm not going to take this off. We'll keep them together, but if I voted individually on item number 30, I would vote against it, just for that fact that you didn't do it last time. I think you had a great person in that spot, and I think you would find a great person without this search. And who knows, maybe you find somebody within the city of Omaha and it's not necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Deb, we talked this morning in pre-council, my concerns about consultants, not diminishing the importance of this position because it's very important. In the past, for department head positions, do we typically use consultants to help find and fill these positions?
We have, yes, sir. For our Parks and Recreation Director position, here most recently, we use Searchwide Global. They specialize in Parks and Recreation and Convention and Visitor Bureau. When we hired Mr. Keith Baxton for the Convention and Visitors Bureau position, we used a search firm for that as well. At one point in time, we did also use a search firm for fire chief position before Chief Olson was hired. So we've done them on occasion.
Okay, what happens in the event that we don't use this consultant to do this? How would the position get filled?
We would take it through the normal course of action where we would post the position for something like this as a director at least 30 days, and then we'd reach out through the various different social media and job boards that we particularly publish on, to draw information. We've recently signed with DOTComm. It would be there, and one of the other agenda items on today's agenda is our LinkedIn corporate contract. We would use those resources to reach out to individuals. The nice thing about the search firm is that they specialize in government entities, local government entities, state government entities, and they have designed their search criteria to find, hard to find executive type positions. But if we did not have them, we would do that posting internally, and Mary and Jake would be the individuals reaching out to everyone that we can find.
Okay, and I have 100% faith in you and your staff if that's a road we got to go down. So assuming that this does not get passed today, your team, as you described, would go out and I'm assuming it would be outside the Omaha metropolitan area, it would be Nebraska, Midwest, nationwide search, that candidates from Jacksonville, Florida to Seattle and everywhere in between crossing the country through social media and these LinkedIn and Indeed and other job outreach through social media, that would get the word out as well. And then your team would interview the candidates and screen and do the work that you guys do in human resources to fill that. And
Yes.
of course, the mayor's staff.
Right, exactly. We would do the best that we possibly could. Again, with the search firm like this, they're dedicated and they do searches for various different entities all across the country. So they have a database of individuals that are, executive level that they can draw from that might be deeper than what we can do on our own. So that's why we've made this recommendation.
Last question for you. If this doesn't pass today and your team does the outreach and in 2 months or whatever time comes, and at that time you feel that the pool of candidates didn't meet the standards, then could that be looked at again later, this same item here, number 30?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thanks. And again, I got great confidence in you as the HR director, and even Dave Grauman, I got confidence in him and your team, but I mean that.
Thank you.
You guys do great work, and I always struggle with consultants to do the work that quality people in these positions that, in my view, you would do a great job. So I appreciate you answering my questions this morning and today, as you always do. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Deb, this question is for you. You've already stated that this position previously was not filled by looking at outside help, nationwide search, things of that nature. So I'm going to be direct. Why now are we making the decision to do a nationwide search on this position?
It was, it's a request by the mayor's office to do a nationwide search. I believe that was in her press release. And so we are looking at, fulfilling that request from the mayor's office. And also, we don't have a known group of candidates, so we would have to advertise. And in doing so, it's always nice to have that broader outreach throughout the country rather than just the Omaha metropolitan area, which is mostly what we would reach out to. So we have filled positions in the past. We hadn't done a nationwide search for a parks director before. We did one this last time, just to see what we can find as far as the most qualified candidates and the broadest approach possible.
Thank you for that information. I understand now that this was a nationwide, this request for a nationwide search was brought about through the mayor's request. What are some of the reasons why she felt that was needed? I heard what you have already said, but what is some of the characteristics, what is the rationale as to why that was needed here in this case?
You'd have to ask her specifically for those reasons. And mostly it's to get as broad a spectrum of candidates, diverse candidates as we possibly can for this important position.
So we're looking for a diverse pool of applicants?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that the reason?
Yes, ma'am.
And we feel that if we do a nationwide search, we would have a wider pool of applicants?
I believe so, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think at least one thing that's of importance to note is, well, two things. By doing a nationwide search certainly does not rule out any local or local applicants or any current employees, number
Correct.
one. And number two, we should all remember that directors serve at the pleasure of the mayor. So if it's this mayor or any other mayor who wants to surround themselves with the people that they're most comfortable with and feel are the most qualified, I think that's within their prerogative. So I fully support what she's asked us to do in this regard.
Mr. Palermo.
Thank you, Mr. President. and I've been advised by the president, and I'll let people know that we are going to pull this off and vote individually. And it certainly, the discussion we're having brings me back to searches we've had in the past where companies have formulated a list, and maybe we haven't always followed that list, and we've disagreed with the list, and we've sent it back to the companies on certain occasions. So while I appreciate a national search on this, ultimately, wouldn't it be the HR's decision to go through these candidates and present to the mayor the best possible one? Or you have zero say in it? They rank them 1 through 10 and you present it to the mayor?
The selection is at the discretion of the mayor. Like Councilmember Harding said, what we are tasked with is to cast a wide net and collect as many qualified candidates, diverse candidates as possible, and present those individuals to the mayor's office. We don't do any sort of testing process.
Okay.
What you had referred to earlier, there isn't a testing company. This is strictly recruitment.
So for $23,000, do you think you're able to cast that wide net and make this recommendation to the mayor's office in-house? Or you're not capable of doing that?
I don't know that and I think we get a wider, more diverse pool if we look nationwide rather and have a company that specializes in these types of things. They only work with government entities. They've written job descriptions for specific jobs. One of the examples they gave us is that City of Arlington, Texas did not have a diversity inclusion individual manager, director. So they wrote the job description for them and they helped recruit that particular individual, and the person ultimately came from Baltimore, Maryland to Arlington, Texas. So it's that's one of the samples that they provided to us. We did speak to the City of Arlington. They've been very they've had several jobs that went through GovHR, and they've been very successful with the number of candidates and the diverse candidates that were brought to the table.
Okay. And I can appreciate the firms we have, because you mentioned a couple names. One of them people's still here. One of them people are not here. And the person who just left didn't go through the process. So if I look at it that way, I don't know that it's worth $23,000. That's my opinion and what I believe. Thank you.
Thank you. There's no further lights. As Councilman Palermo mentioned, sensing this item might not be unanimous, we'll take a separate vote on number 30. I believe the other items appear to be unanimous, which will be 19 through 23, 26, 29, and 31 through 33. So I'm going to take a motion on those. Did I not close public hearing? I'm sorry. Are there any other opponents to these items? I thought I already did that. These are. Yes, these are opponents.
Are all of these hearings closed or not?
No, we're calling for opponents on numbers 19 through 23, 26, 29, and 31 through 33.
You closed number 30 a little too fast.
That's on there if you'd like to speak, Larry.
Okay, are we on proponents?
We're on opponents.
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. I'm going to oppose all of them. You're moving so fast, and by the way, why is there no Zoom? If there's people listening out there trying to watch on cable, are they able to follow you as fast as you went through all that as to what was pulled out and what wasn't pulled out, and then all of a sudden you closed 30? I didn't have time to get out of my seat.
You do now.
So I'm going to complain about it, and I'm going to say I'm opposed to 30. I'm opposed to all these others also. You need to slow down, maybe explain these rules to the public before you close the hearing. This is a public hearing. But you really didn't give us a chance, did you? Did you give Donnie a chance? I think he was confused too.
All right, guys. Larry.
Well, we lost the game, Donnie.
Larry, this is your time. Okay. Are there any other speakers on these items? If they're not, then the public hearings are closed, and I'll take a motion on those first items.
Move 19, 23, 26, 29, 31 through 33.
Thank you. I'll second that. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
Aye.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson. Oh, she's out. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 5-0.
Is there a motion on number 30? motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
No.
Rowe.
Yes.
Bagley.
No.
Harding.
Yes.
Johnson is out. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion failed 3-2. Item 24, a resolution to submit Section 108 loan guarantee application and amendments for the City of Omaha's annual Community Development Block Grant allocation estimated to total $21 million.
The public hearing and vote on number 24 is today. I'd like to ask the planning department to come down as a proponent. We spoke this morning, and I thought it'd be a good idea to have them highlight this agenda item briefly, because I think it's a new item and also very important to our affordable housing efforts. And then we'll take proponents and opponents on it.
Okay, thank you. Greg Paskach, City of Omaha Planning Department. So the HUD Section 108 is a loan guarantee program that we can use to utilize a source of low-cost, long-term financing up to 20 years to support economic and community development projects. So the program is authorized through Section 108 of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as the loan guarantee component of the Community Development Block Grant Program. The program allows governments to leverage our CDBG funds up to 5 times the annual allocation into federally guaranteed loans. The city is required to secure these loans by pledging current and future CDBG allocations, as well as additional security, which we're looking at real property, which would be land and or improvements of funded projects. So the intent here is that we would use these Section 108 funds to create an affordable housing loan pool to support development, rehabilitation, and preservation of affordable housing in Omaha's neighborhood revitalization strategy areas. So we currently have roughly a $4.2 million annual allocation of CDBG funds. So that would allow us to then create roughly a $21 million loan pool.
Great. Thank you. Yeah. I'm going to have a couple follow-up questions for you, but first I'll take other proponents that are in the audience. Seeing none, any opponents?
Just trying to figure out to tell my investors don't invest in Lincoln after October. Should they? Anyway, Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation, 4928 North 52nd Street. Again, I'm trying to go back to what Marty Schuber had in mind for the city of Omaha and how many businesses we've lost. Anthony's, Mr. C's. We're losing so many businesses in this community. And then I talked to the planning department, and my son who went to Creighton, but there's other things that I talked to Miss Bridget Hadley about while I was debating on which direction to go on some things. I said, we don't use Fountaindale Park anymore. Would you put a hotel down there so when some of those teams come and play Creighton, they want to mingle in North Omaha? We don't have a hotel in North Omaha. We don't use Fountaindale. So if you guys are going to give them this money for that, we don't want housing loan. We want something that's going to generate some revenue. So some of those folks who might not want to stay downtown and stay in North Omaha at Fountaindale at one of those Trump Plaza, or not that big. Me and him was working on something in Nigeria. In the meantime, I'm going to support these programs, but at the same time, would you keep these in mind, what Marty Schuber said, we got to replace these jobs.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing non-public hearings closed, maybe just a couple more questions for you. So I definitely support this, and I think it's an important component of what we're trying to achieve with affordable housing. We've had $40 million as part of this conversation so far, and this would be the $60 million we've talked about.
Yep. That
is a separate fund, as you described, leveraged through our CDBG program,
yep.
The $4.2 million per year or so. It does not use that $4.2 million unless absolutely necessary, right? It just leverages
Correct.
that into this bigger loan.
Correct, yeah, it's a fail-safe. So the existing programs would continue with the annual allocation, and the idea would be, right, the first level of security collateral, right, would be those land and or improvements for the projects being funded. And then the city CDBG funds is kind of, right, last resort. And, in the worst case scenario, right, where we did have a repayment we would have to do, it would be a reduction of future, annual allocations to make those outstanding loan payments.
Mm-hmm. So I appreciate the innovative approach here because it allows us now 2 pools of funds to draw from, if done correctly.
Yeah.
for this purpose, and in a process that is complementary to, but outside the front porch process we've previously adopted, right?
It is, yeah. It's actually a separate program. We'll have, like I said, new funding source, and the underwriting with that, we will have our, internal underwriting, which we'll work most likely with a third party on, but then also each project has to go before HUD, and they also have to do underwriting to ensure the project is sound.
And how would you define success with this program 4 years from now, let's say?
Well, so I guess all the funds being out the door, honestly, is number one in support of low to moderate income households and new affordable housing being created.
Do you have any sense of how many units we hope to accomplish? Is that tough to estimate?
No, unfortunately, I don't have a number for you at this time what we would be looking at, but I mean, you could always kind of estimate, per unit cost, but no, unfortunately, I don't.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Greg, I wanted to personally, how long have you been with the city for?
Hit about 2 months.
Couple months, okay.
Yeah.
And I shared this with others at one of the neighborhood meetings. You came to Gifford Park with me. I think you were a couple weeks into your job. And I want the people that are listening to know how talented you are and passionate for this issue. Mr. Fanslaw in the mayor's office made an excellent hire when they brought you on board. It didn't take me long to realize that. So
Thank you.
I appreciate your work on this, and I know my colleagues and I look forward to meeting more with you and getting you out in the community and the great knowledge you bring that makes it easier for people to understand. So I just wanted to say thanks and welcome aboard. We're glad to have you.
I appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you. Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
I'll second that. Public hearing on this is closed. Not on this item, you can't. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
I'd like to give the young lady in the audience an opportunity to ask a question.
Please come down. And the only reason I said that is because public hearing is closed, but if you're recognized by a council member with the floor, you have that opportunity. Your name and address, please.
Yep. No problem. I apologize. I am new at this, but I have been recently attending more city meetings with the intent of hoping to support some of the opportunities and delinquencies that we need in North Omaha on behalf of our children and our aging. And I've been at a recent city council meeting where we talked about the CBDG funds. And like I said, I don't know everything about them, but I would like for someone to begin to look at where the funds actually get spent. Because what I found during the most recent meeting, which I think you were probably on your first month here, was that there were a lot of big corporations that people from within the community don't understand how these entities are coming in and building what's supposed to be affordable housing that people from within the community will never own. One of the most alarming things that I found was that Holy Name, and I hate to put them on blast, but Holy Name has Forever Rentals, which was something I'd never heard of before, and I'm sure people in the community aren't aware of as well. And they get funds from CBDG funding for under the Affordable Housing Loan Fund, as well as those from Habitat for Humanity. But yet when we see all of these homes coming up in the community off 24th Street through 30th and further east, these homes that are being occupied are not from people within the community, and then you're continuing to relocate these families further and further west in smaller areas, which now we're talking about all of these big commercial apartments that are going to come through that again are going to maybe provide 5% of housing to those on lower income or special income. I just want to make that a point that you know that most of the people that I see in this room were not at such a city council meeting where they actually talked about the CBDG funds, and we really need to look and find out who's coming in, who's building the properties, and what people are actually going to be allowed to live in them, because the funds are being sold as though they're going to be used for people within the community, and that's just not so. And the people that get the wealth from building the properties or getting the loans are also not citizens of the community. And I don't want that to be a negative thing, but people need to start understanding what's included in the entire package rather than just okay to give funds because we say affordable housing. Thank you.
I'm sorry, we didn't get your name and address for the record.
I'm sorry. I'm Vicki Reed, nurse practitioner. I have 2 properties, one in Bellevue and one at 6223 Florence Boulevard, Omaha, Nebraska. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson, do you have more? Or is...
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you. There was a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 25, a resolution to approve the real estate purchase agreement with 75 North Revitalization Corporation for the sale of 6 city-owned parcels of property. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing and vote on number 25 is today. I will note that this item was taken off consent agenda because there is an issue with the paperwork and a request from the Planning Department to lay over for 1 week, and I'll recognize them here to explain that a little further. And to also note, when these things do happen, it is generally the City Council's approach and policy to lay over 1 week until we do have the proper documentation in front of us. So, Ms. Johnson-Dorsey, if you'd like to explain further.
Thank you. Kelly Johnson-Dorsey with the Planning Department. We request that agenda item number 25 is held over 1 week to allow CDBG adjustment within the purchase agreement. City funds, CDBG funds had been used to site prep those, and we just want to make sure that in the purchase agreement it clearly states that 51% of those lots then need to be built and sold to homeowners who earn 80% or less AMI. So it's just a holdover to get that language within the purchase agreement.
Thank you. So I believe that is our intention today, but because we've listed public hearing, we'll have a public hearing for those that might be here and want to speak to this issue. So first we'll take proponents.
Good afternoon. My name's Sydney Franklin, 2112 North 30th Street, Suite 200, Omaha 68131. I'm with 75 North, representing the agenda item. If there are any questions about what's being proposed following the sale of these lots of 75 North, I'm happy to answer any questions, but I know we'll be back next week to discuss this further.
And you agree with what was just said and the 1 week labor to get clarification, right?
Yes, we will more than comply with the 51% requirement.
Okay, thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm against this because I don't think it's clear enough as to who this is and what they're going to do with the properties and how they got it for $1 when the taxpayers are struggling. And isn't this connected to a 75 North something or other that's up a little way south of Ames Avenue? Are we expanding a campus there through this? And is the Omaha Land Bank involved? Just questions I think the public ought to be able to ask and get answers to. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Motion a second to lay over 1 week. Roll call.
Palermo. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0.
Thanks.
Item 27, a resolution to approve the real estate purchase agreement with Dana Murray for the sale of 2 city-owned parcels of property located at 2506 and 2510 North 24th Street in consideration of the sum of $415,000. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
The public hearing and vote on number 27 is today. This item is similar in the respect that there was a change to the paperwork at the last minute here. We'll have maybe the Planning Department address, and it would be the council's intention to lay over 1 week for that reason. But we know we have folks here to speak to this project, and so we want to make sure we give them a chance to be here today and provide their testimony. So if there's someone from the law or planning that wants to address the issue, then we'll take proponents after that.
This is a much more simple change than the last agenda item we discussed. This is simply removing number 23 from the purchase agreement. I think it was inadvertently left in from the purchase agreement template, and it does not apply to this transaction. You can see it talks about building residential properties, which is not the case here. So it's just really a technicality of crossing off number 23 in its entirety, and that's already been provided to the clerk's office as well.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we'll take proponents for number 27.
Okay. I'll stay up here and start.
Okay,
Kelly
go ahead.
Johnson-Dorsey with the Planning Department. The city acquired the buildings that make up the former North Omaha Jazz and Cultural Arts Museum located at 2506 and 2510 North 24th Street in the mid to late 1990s. 2510 was purchased from Bertha Calloway in 1994 for $6,500. 2506 North 24th Street, which was purchased from three parties, the Gibsons, Briscoes, and Jean Lohman, for $18,500 in 1997. In 2005, the city entered into a lease agreement with the Loves Jazz Cultural Arts and Humanities Complex, Inc., to occupy the building. The lease was extended once in 2015, and the lease expired on April 30th, 2022. The city then approached the North 24th Street Business Improvement District for assistance in finding another tenant for the building and assistance with managing the property. Understandably, the BID did not want to be involved with the management of the property, but agreed to find a candidate for the building's reuse. After conducting their search and interviewing candidates, the BID selected Mr. Dana Murray, who represents North Omaha Music and Arts, or Noma. At this point, the BID removed themselves from communication regarding the reuse of the building. As the city and Noma discussed the lease agreement terms and programming offered by Noma, Mr. Murray expressed interest in purchasing the building from the city. Mr. Murray then met with the planning department and the mayor's office to discuss this possibility. The city charter allows for the city to sell property to an interested party such as Mr. Murray, and so discussions began to move in the direction of the sale of the property to Noma. At this time, the city communicated with HUD on the disposition of the public facility under CDBG regulations. According to HUD regulations, the buyer must pay the appraised value of the property. In this case, the appraised value of the building was $415,000. Throughout discussions with Noma, the city was also mindful of the community-driven North Omaha Village Plan, which was approved by the Omaha City Council in 2011. The plan calls for the Lake Street Cultural Arts District located at 24th and Lake. In this plan, for example, is also a proposed Ohio Street Music Center. Also, the 24th and Lake redevelopment plan, adopted by City Council February 15th, 2022, states, it is anticipated that the building will be purchased from the city to house North Omaha Music and Arts, Noma, as well as Noma anticipates acquiring the building from the city of Omaha and becoming the sole owner. The reuse of the building was presented to the public as far back as April 20th, 2021. The desire of the city to sell 2506 and 2510 North 24th Street for Noma was stated over 9 months ago in the 24th and Lake redevelopment plan. The city began collecting public comments on the change of use and sale of the building on May 10th. On June 1st, the planning board unanimously approved the disposition of 2506 and 2510 to Dana Murray. No one spoke in opposition of this sale. The 2022 action plan, adopted by the City Council on June 28, 2022, anticipated the sale of the building and allocated the $415,000 to the North 24th Street Facade Improvement Program. Mr. Murray will now present on the North Omaha Music and Arts Academy, and I remain available to answer any questions.
Thank you. Other proponents, Mr. Murray.
Good afternoon. My name is Dana Murray, Executive Director of North Omaha Music and Arts, 2510 North 24th Street. I've spoken with a number of you separately on what Noma is and the scope of what it is, but for the sake of the public, I will try to define what it's going to mean to that community. Yes, it is a music and art academy. More than that, it is a place that will nurture the spirit of development of our young people, building critical thinking young people, building dedicated, committed young people, our young people in our communities of color. Think of it like a house on fire, and we're trying to put out that fire with cups of water, right? Oftentimes, a lot of our agendas are too small to meet the demand of what's really there. That's why there should be something like Noma. Outside of the social agenda, the education agenda, after I got my boots on the ground in that community, I realized there has to be an economic component to everything that we do, because there is a great need for that. That is built into the infrastructure of what we have. We have a, is this working? I'm not sure.
Yeah, just pull it up
It is,
there and then it'll
okay.
come on for you. See, is it all the way up? Okay, there it goes.
There we are. Not sure how many of you know what the building looks as it stands, but it's a lot different than that. This is a $20 million capital campaign. Wow, that's a lot of money. Set the bar high, because that's what's needed, right? I always say that for the amount of change everybody says they want, there needs to be the requisite sacrifice. Everyone has to be willing to sacrifice something. My sacrifice is doing this, because I don't have to be doing Noma. The need is so great. I'm coming out of my world to provide something for these young people, because I was one of those young people. I was fortunate enough to attend Councilperson Juanita Johnson's community meeting last night. It was great to hear the overwhelming support that was there, and to just be able to communicate to her constituents about exactly what Noma is. Outside of that, right after it was over, we stepped outside to hear gunshots in the background. That's why there should be a Noma. Give kids something else to do, right? As we're trying to teach our kids, they don't have a problem with the how and the what anymore. A kid could go learn how to be a surgeon on YouTube if they were that driven, right? But the why is the problem. We're not inspiring them, but don't ask me, ask them. That's the problem. They're never asked. So I find myself speaking, not for me, again, because I don't need Noma, but speaking for them. I advocate for them. That's what this is. I also advocate for the development on economic level to that community, right? I was asked yesterday, how will Noma impact the community on an economic level? Well, what layer do you want me to go to? Ask Holland Center or Orpheum Theater or the new Steel House that OPA has. Ask some of those stakeholders in that community, those business owners, those restaurants, those boutiques, how important that foot traffic on the ground is to their community. There are no destinations in North Omaha. And again, I love Time Out Chicken. I don't count that. We need to build destinations to invite the rest of Omaha down in what we have to sell, and that's our culture. So it's not always sold and profited on by other communities. It's a very simple equation, but Noma is a culmination of my life's work. My history makes me uniquely qualified to come to North Omaha and do exactly what I say. I grew up in the South Omaha projects, right? I'm one of the only ones that came out of there doing anything like what my life provided. Not because kids weren't smart, because they weren't driven. They succumbed to their surroundings. So I consider myself very fortunate. And I feel it to be a responsibility that I give back. Because there are some days that I wake up and ask myself, what the hell are we doing? It's that much of a sacrifice. So when I speak to people, and I speak to them passionately, it's because I have a sense of urgency. Because like when I came out of that meeting last night, heard those gunshots, looked at the news, there were 3 people shot, I don't want to miss the opportunity to reach one kid. So hopefully that resonates with everybody. But that is my platform, so if you didn't know, now you know.
Thank you. Other proponents that want to speak today?
Hi, my name is Brianna Full, and my address is 1111 North 13th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. And I'm here on behalf of Spark. So, we are here to express our support for the North Omaha Music and Arts Academy, or otherwise known as Noma. We feel that Noma's mission to enrich and empower the community through music and art will help fill the gap in the surrounding neighborhoods for such programs. An initiative like Noma has the potential to support individual and community development, thus improving quality of life and to the economic opportunities in North Omaha. We are looking forward to the continued success and activation of this space that is beloved by the community. This space and the process in which it was acquired in the past has elicited strong feelings from the community. Spark wants to acknowledge this and encourage more transparent processes and community participation in the future. We support the potential for positive change and improvements to the area that Noma intends to provide. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents, please.
My name is David Hawkins, 2703 North 62nd Street. So there are many perspectives as to why this is important that I honestly think are fairly obvious. So I just want to speak briefly from my own experience and largely from what I have as opposed to what I don't. I'm a musician by trade. That is both my profession and my passion. While I still have a long road ahead of me in pursuing my passions to their fullest extent and developing myself to the fullest actualization of my potential, both as a musician and as a person, and as a Black young man, there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that I've been given all of the tools, or at least been given the experiences needed to build the tools necessary for me to reach every single goal that I have and become every bit of the person that I have the potential to be. This is largely through environments created or in some way involving Dana, or that are everything that Noma will embody. That real long road that's still ahead of me, I'm here for it. I'm prepared. I don't just believe it's possible. I know how and I know why. While there's nothing special about me, I know that this is not the case for a lot of my counterparts and younger in my community. Allowing Noma to establish its home here brings all of the transformative things that I've been able and fortunate enough to benefit from within reach. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today.
Good afternoon, Juliana Tabor, 2308 North 63rd Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68104. I'm a lifelong Omaha citizen and graduate of Creighton Law School. I am currently the director of a 501c3 celebrating our 16th year called Arts for All. And our mission is to make the arts available and accessible, equitable access to arts education, opportunities for everyone throughout the city, regardless of their zip code or income level. And it is our intention to help support Noma in any way possible, which includes, we've already got some awesome dance shoes and things like that. But with our 16 years of experience and the infrastructure that we have in terms of our network of teachers, which are many are certified public school teachers and certified in teaching art, and some are just working local artists and musicians. And I have spoken with Mr. Murray and pledged him all the support of our organization and our experience. And I just wanted to share a couple of things that I believe our other proponents were touching on, but specifically that budgets are tight and the arts are being removed from the school. And we have, and I'm happy to provide citations if that's helpful for anyone, but it's important that youth, especially in our community, are exposed to positive community programs like this. And studies have shown that participation in arts programs like this do reduce the rates of those that drop out of high school, which is important for us here in the city to make sure we're investing in the youth. And other studies have further shown that arts participation engages students so that they're more invested in their school community. And of course that those with a strong arts and or music education background have been shown to go on to participate in higher education, go to college, and have higher household incomes. So I think that providing those opportunities to those for the first time in a long time in this space would just mean a great deal. And Mr. Murray, having played personally with Mr. Preston Love, who's another famous Omaha musician, just adds to his credibility, and we can all see his passion. So I support, as a nonprofit director, all of everything that will come from Noma, and they have the full resources of our organization available should they need.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Other proponents today?
Hello again. Dr. Vicki Reed, a mother, a nurse practitioner. I'm the Omaha chapter lead of Mothers of Black Boys United. I'm here in support of Noma under direction of Mr. Dana Murray. This is a
I just need
proactive.
your address too for the record.
What's that?
Your address too for the record.
My address is 2107 Tulip Lane, Bellevue, Nebraska, and with the second property at 6223 Florence Boulevard, Omaha.
Thanks.
Sorry. I'm here in support of Mr. Murray. This is going to be a proactive response to the concerns within the community. I didn't expect to have the conversation about what happened on last night, but it is definitely a reason why I strongly support the development of Noma. We've got to get to a point where we are proactive and looking at what works in other communities that isn't currently working in our community. We are missing a big portion of children from our community that aren't necessarily going to be the football player, the basketball player, baseball, etc. But they are children who are artistically inclined, whether it be music, dance, other things. But once they are outside of either their community development, the YMCA, etc., or what the high school has to offer, there is nowhere else for them to go to become a professional in the arts. Noma, I know firsthand as a mother, will lead your child down that direction. I talked with you all the last time that I was here. My son was under the direction of Mr. Murray for several years, and every time that he came home, he had commitment to times that he had to be back. He wasn't afraid, but somehow that discipline of commitment led him to stay committed to what he wanted to do in the music. In his music. He went to school to go to fly airplanes and decided that he had to stay in music, so he played his drums, and he's currently a sound engineer working with our Hearst Media that puts on many of your media publications currently. Knowing that the building that we're asking to acquire, the previous resident was Mr. Love, is really important in this purchase for Mr. Murray. I think that looking at it as not a change but a transition from our native Omaha greats, the Love family, to now Mr. Murray is going to lead to that same direction of keeping the culture of music where it was born within North Omaha. We've heard about a lot of other entities that want to talk about arts and the creativity when really we know that the center of that has always come from North Omaha for many, many years. So I'm hoping that you guys will all look at this as in many directions, that we're being proactive and providing a resource for our children that may go a different direction, but also a transition of the Love family and the musical history from North Omaha, and keeping that within the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Laisha Goodwin, 3118 North 24th Street, here to speak as a proponent for Noma. Music has always been a fixture in my life, from tinkering at my grandparents' piano as a small child to performing at the Holland with my college jazz band. I grew up with music. But for all the stages that I've performed on and have had the privilege to perform on, few to none were in my community. So the fact that the near North Side can host a state-of-the-art, world-class music and performing arts facility is extremely special. Not only is music culturally significant to North 24th Street, it is an important and essential contribution to those who partake in its beauty. Music and performing arts facilitates creativity, instills discipline, cultivates lasting relationships, and it unifies communities. The ethereal sensation of music wafting onto the streets during the master classes at Noma summoned a longing for the joy this community used to know often, but several generations have never experienced. The exhilarating and energy of local artists sharing the fruit of their talents while children played in the street and families spent time in the sun, all of this was experienced to the sound of music. So today, members of the council, I speak for a generation of children from the near North Side who long for the joy, to experience joy from excellence in music and performing arts in their community. Please vote yes.
Thank you. Other proponents today?
Daniel M. Goodwin Jr., 3116 North 24th Street. This represents a tremendous opportunity for North Omaha and North 24th Street. Anyone who knows Dana Murray knows his talent and his integrity, his walk. He talked about it himself. But this is opportunity as he has presented the image of what he endeavors to build on North 24th Street. A neglected area that someone comes and says, I want to invest $20 million in this space. What we need is this type of momentum with excellence, integrity, and positivity. It's exactly what we need. As a business owner on North 24th Street, we can build momentum from partnering with people like Dana Murray. And so please vote yes.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Hello, my name is Tammy Penny, 4404 Jane Street. I didn't write anything up. I wanted to come straight from my heart. I'm a single mom who raised 2 young men all by myself, and I instilled in them the values of responsibility and being dedicated to things that they love in life. And I feel like part of that, those values was pushed along and helped me instill that in them by Dana Murray. They were under his tutelage when they were at Burke High School, and they also went on to be a part of one of his programs with going on to teach the kids. As you see, based on my address, my boys grew up in one of the heart neighborhoods of North Omaha. They didn't have time to be out there being a menace to society because Dana kept them busy. He taught them to be dedicated, not to be afraid of putting your heart into things and working for long hours. My boys are now doing a very good job with themselves. They have high-paying jobs. They put in a lot of long hours just like they did with Dana, and I feel like they would not have chosen to do those things if it wasn't for the programs that, the program that they were in with him, because they wouldn't have learned that dedication. So I am in favor of Noma.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Donnie Johnson, 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson and Question Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. I had made up in my mind at some point I hated everything coming out of North Omaha. But since Mr. Murray has presented this, and Mr. Dan Goodwin's son here, who was an excellent student at Iowa and Central, on that corner in 1964, my cousin owned that corner, and she opened the first record store. And she sold it because when she sold it, she went to study it under the Soviet Union, Brezhnev, under President Johnson and that group. And when she came back from Russia, she brought me one of those ruby glasses. So that's how I want to share how I got into international affairs. I was one of them. So music in this direction would be a good program, I believe. It focused on where a lot of your international communities are coming together through music on the world global economy, which I work on most of my time. So from that corner, I'm not so sure what Mr. Preston Love Sr. did, but I do know what my cousin did under opera and all those programs. And I was looking at if they did this, to go ahead and fix the Orpheum Theater, because some of my cousins friends in New York that I studied with up in Manhattan, said they would bring Mrs. Price, the opera singer, to Omaha if she had a decent place to perform, or her cousins. Anyway, if you get money for that and get money for the Orpheum to remodel it, some of my friends would come here from New York and then get money to build a hotel at Fountaindale Park where we don't need anymore. So I can ask some of my my friends from France, Germany, and East Africa and West Africa, they have a place to stay right in North Omaha. And I also study music, which If you watch, I tell you one more, Mr. Fretz, you seem to be highly intelligent some days. In the meantime,
I have my moments, huh?
in the meantime, I was looking at this whole process about international affairs. I'll save that to next time.
All right, deal. Any other proponents today on number 27?
My name is Mitch Town, 15509 Lloyd Street. I have known Dana Murray for 30 years. I'm a professional musician. And two things that I can tell you that are extremely relevant to today about Dana is that he's always had a huge vision for what's possible and that he is a doer, not a talker. Dana is someone with deep Omaha roots who left Omaha to pursue his lifelong dreams and by all accounts made it in music. He became a world-renowned musician who toured all over the world and then decided to come back to Omaha to raise his son in this community. And from the time Dana came back and called me to let me know that he was back, he was talking about what we can do here in Omaha. This is 20 years ago, and he had this huge vision. And I'll be honest, I had that Omaha mindset of like, okay, sure, we can do that, sure. But he never let up. He never let up. Within a few years of coming back here, he formed an indoor drum line, which within 2-3 years of forming won the world championship in their division. And he did that in like 2 or 3 years here in Omaha. And what I can tell you about being a musician, because I've been a musician since I was a kid, like someone else said, you give a kid that thing and it makes him stand up a little taller and it gives him a little separation. It's like, well, I'm a musician, so I'm different. You know, I'm not gonna be like that. And you give a kid that at a young age and it establishes something in them. I consider Dana to be the other oracle of Omaha because of all the students that he's had since he came here who have studied with him, who have gone on to tour the world and play on Broadway. When Dana first told me about Noma, it was so exciting, this huge vision, but Dana is a doer. He's someone who actually has the credentials and the history to back up what he's saying. I remember when David Hawkins was a young kid coming out to our shows, and I see this kid out in the audience taking notes on a notepad. I'm like, who's that? He's like, oh, that's one of my students. Dana puts that, he instills that desire and drive and tells kids straight across what it takes to really make it, to really be someone, to really establish yourself. I couldn't be more proud that Dana is a friend of mine and a musician here, and that we play together, and I can't wait to see what happens out of Noma. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Well, story time has been real fun. I didn't think this was a presentation. I thought this was a hearing. But we've had how many? Maybe 16 actual presentations here. Some of them went over 5 minutes. I remember the Howdy Doody show started at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and there was always a story time or Uncle Tom's Cabin. All nice information, and you know, I'd like kids to have opportunities too. But maybe there's some kids in South Omaha, there's some kids in Dundee that don't have a music video. Again, transparency causes problems. Lack of transparency causes more problems. I didn't know who Dana Murray is. I'm thinking, well, is that a statue somewhere in the park? No. Well, why should we be giving $415,000 to somebody named Dana Murray? Or a building for $1? And then talking about economic development, when everybody else has to buy their own building, everybody else has to start their own business, or their own music shop, or their own daycare, but we're gonna steal money that I paid into the federal government that's being used by Arpa for Arpa Funds, just because somebody up there in Washington said it classifies for use, doesn't mean it's good. Maybe it's evil. When it goes dry, for funds, what are these people gonna do? Are they gonna riot because they can't get money from you then? Huh? Maybe we won't even be a country when you give every dollar away and the oil is given away and we go to war. Who's gonna be angry? Not me. The people that don't get the money are gonna be angry. And then maybe the people that lose the republic because we're trying to move us towards, excuse me, socialism. Words matter. If you read between the line of all the words we heard today, we're trying to invent socialism here in Omaha. But using federal tax dollars, which were just not mine only, but people from across the country, to give away another $415,000 in Omaha. Last week, everybody got to give away $50,000, each commissioner or each councilman. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not good economics for our country. This is socialism, and it's maybe even Marxism, and it's evil, and it needs to be opened up. If I'm a liar, prove me wrong. Open it up so the people could understand what the hell is going on. It sounds like, looks like, it smells like you're pulling the wool over our eyes. You're doing some kind of a card trick. And it's time to stop that. How many people on Zoom are watching this and listening to it today and listened to it last week? There's a lot of people getting rather hot under the collar with this stuff, and including the election. And it's time to talk about it. Don't try to cover it up and pull a fast one just because the election is right around the corner.
Any other opponents that want to speak today? Seeing non-public hearings closed, Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank all of the warm thoughts that came up to the mic and presented very good causes for us to have this beautiful facility that we see on the screen here. Also, I'd like to thank Dana for having this vision to bring this in North 24th Street area. And yes, all of the young individuals that live in that community are looking and seeking and need very much supportive services such as the example that we're seeing here. Today, I'm a little bit concerned about a couple of things, and if Ms. Johnson Dorsey, if she could answer a couple questions for me, that would help me with my decision here today. If you would come up and answer a couple questions. We have the cost of $415,000. Can you explain where those funds where they will come from?
Yes, they would be used from the city's ARPA funds. Those funds would then go to a title company and then come back to the city, and CDBG funds, which has already been approved in the 2022 action plan as a newly created North 24th Street facade improvement program. So the funds, the ARPA funds, would then directly come in and as what we call program income for CDBG to create and fund that program that's already been approved. Without those funds, we wouldn't have any money to do that facade improvement program.
So earlier you had mentioned that you had went to the public and mentioned that this would be available and kind of got sentiments of the community regarding this project. When was it notified to the public that the $415,000 would be used out of ARPA funds?
Yeah, I have a timeline. Let me grab it real quick. So let's see here. We have that started on, I believe it was May 13th.
Right, but as I recall, yes, the communication went out to the community, but there was no mention of the $415,000 being used or being taken from ARPA funds at that time. So I'm asking more specifically about when was it decided and who decided that the 415 would come out of ARPA funds, because the way it was presented to the community as it relates to CDBG funds is that that the purchasing of the building, of course, would be $415,000, but there was no mention of how those funds would be obtained. So there was a understanding or a opportunity for the community to believe that Mr. Mary would be paying that $415,000. I mean, because it never was mentioned that ARPA funds would be utilized in that way. So I'm asking again, when was it decided that the $415,000 would be allocated from ARPA funds? And when that happened, was it communicated to the public, more importantly to this area in which this is being serviced at? Again, this project is great, but I'm concerned about transparency as a representative for District 2. I'm concerned about transparency. I'm concerned about how I will be able to go back into the community and articulate when this decision was made regarding $415,000, because everyone that I'm in communications with were under the impression that Mr. Mary would be paying that, or somehow he would be assessed those funds. Yes, it was marketed that the $415,000 would then in turn come back and do some type of facade improvement, which is another good project on 24th Street. But again, I didn't have any knowledge of the $415,000 being allocated from ARPA funds.
I'm Bernard Innenbush, Deputy City Attorney, and I'd like to address the question because I'm on the ARPA committee, and Ms. Johnson Conroy is not. I think the expectation through all the communication is that Mr. Murray would have to raise philanthropic funds in order to be able to buy this facility and therefore reimburse the CDBG funds. There was a request made to the mayor for ARPA funds, much like the request we've seen for all the allotments that this council has approved to this point for the $415,000. There is an ARPA committee that was appointed by the mayor, made up of the mayor's chief of staff, the mayor's communication coordinator, a couple representatives from the finance department, representative from the law department, and considered a variety of requests, and then ultimately made a recommendation to the mayor. The recommendation to the mayor was for this particular funding if it met the ARPA requirements. I did some research to determine whether it did based on some information that Mr. Lukash provided to us. We've also confirmed that through Deloitte & Touche, who's been the contractor that we were involved with. And as a result of that, the recommendation from the ARPA committee and from the mayor, I mean, the ARPA funds are expended by the council based on recommendations from you that you receive from the mayor, and this went through that process. So you're absolutely correct that was not part of any of necessarily part of the discussions in the public hearing. The expectation was philanthropic funds, I'm assuming. I think that's what the expectation was. But the request was made for ARPA funds and whether or not this project qualified and whether or not this was an appropriate use. And that determination was made, and the mayor ultimately made that recommendation. And that's obviously why you have item 28, the resolution before you, to allocate a portion of the city's $112 million of ARPA funds for this purpose.
Again, when was that recommendation made? And point of clarification just for everyone in this room, as well as constituents in my community, when was I informed of this recommendation?
Well, I don't know when you were informed. I know the council's been briefed periodically on ARPA applications and funding. I've been party of some of those. I have not been part of all of those. I think the discussion as to whether or not to allocate a portion of the ARPA funds was discussed as early as May and June of this year. There were some concerns about whether or not this fit within the ARPA guidance and that analysis took some time. It took some time for Deloitte to do it. The penultimate decision, I believe it's probably fair to say, was made approximately mid to late July. And then it was a matter of timing this particular coordination. As I said, I don't know. I knew there have been periodic briefings. This showed up on the document that was before the council last week that showed the budget for ARPA funds on it. But I don't know specifically when you would have been told.
So just so we're clear, I was not briefed on any of this. And because of transparency to my to this district and to the community of District 2, I just want that to be on the record, that as the representative, these conversations were had without me. And again, this is a beautiful project, don't have any qualms with that, but I do have a judiciary responsibility to make it clear that I was not a part of this discussion, that these allocations would be coming from ARPA funds. Also, I would, at this time, again, the project is great, but I need opportunity to discuss this, flesh this out into the community, that this is something that is happening, because transparency is very important to this community. I ran on the initiative that I would be true and that I would provide information, and I'm not able to do that because this was not shared with me. Again, I'm not in opposition of the project. I am in opposition of the how and the why of how we got here. So I would ask that we delay this 1 week, in addition to the wording on the resolution itself needs some adjustment. And while it may not be the same example as was stated in the previous resolution, it still was not packaged well and does need some amendments. So I would have to move that we lay this over 1 week.
Councilwoman Johnson, you and I met and did discuss this September 12th, and that included the discussion of the ARPA funds. It was indicated that you would send me any questions you had that Wednesday, the 14th. It was my understanding you had a conversation with the mayor's staff the next morning about the use of ARPA funds. That would be the 13th.
No, ma'am. On September the 12th, yes, you did tell me on September the 12th that the mayor had made a recommendation to do this. No, I did not meet with the mayor on September the 13th.
No, her staff, excuse me.
Or her staff on September the 13th. No, that did not take place.
So there was a motion to delay by 1 week, and I'll second that, but I think for a bit of a different reason. And if I may, Mr. Bagley, I know your light's on, but since I provided the second, I just wanted to clarify why I did. And similar to Ms. Johnson, I'm very supportive of this project. I think it's an awesome vision. I met with Dana for quite some time, and we're both drummers, so we mostly talked about drums. And I think it's safe to say he's a much better player than I am. But we also talked about this project and his vision, and I was impressed with that. I was impressed with his organization. I believe this is going to happen, and it'll be a great addition to North Omaha and our entire community. Having said that, the reason why I support the 1 week waiver, though, is we do have the wrong document submitted to the council once again, and I do find that troublesome. This has happened many times in the last few weeks. There was one previously in this meeting that's also a great project, and I'll support next week. But we can't have the wrong documents come to the city council, and the one in front of us right now is a signed purchase agreement with the wrong use in it. And that's not okay when we find out about that at noon on a Tuesday, when we have such an important project like this to move forward. And I do feel urgency about it. I want this to happen as soon as possible, but I just don't think we should make it a practice of amending documents like this, even though it's a fairly simple fix, to a signed purchase agreement on the fly in the middle of our meeting. So that's my rationale for delaying 1 week. But I will say I very much look forward to supporting this next week, and I think you will have strong support for this project. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Murray, and I haven't had the pleasure to personally meet you, but I heard the testimony and got letters from folks that are highly supportive of this. And as I listened to the comments today and read the emails, encouragement, challenge, hope, mentorship, and you talked about one kid at a time. And it's my view that there's probably hundreds of kids. The next one you help is not going to be the first one, and nor will it be the last one. So thank you for what you do and for putting your investment of your time and your passion and your heart in the folks that testified on behalf of this today that come down. You're probably going to be gone when our meeting's over, but I wanted to thank you all for coming down because it makes a difference. And the investment here, looking at this, and again, we got a great big TV screen, and I saw the documents on the attachments when I read it in my office. And it's a great anchor. We talk about anchors in communities. 24th and Lake Street, I think this is going to be tremendous. To give that ray of hope to a young boy or young girl is some testimony was given today by the young mom here raising her boys that you helped. So I'm gonna support the layover of this, not because I don't support it, because I think it's clear that I absolutely am gonna support this, but we need to get it right. And once the vote happens on this, I'll look forward to meeting you in person, and when it opens, maybe you and Fesserson can do a dueling drum on the opening. I'll look forward to that, but thank you for what you do, and keep plowing through, because these things aren't easy, but we're getting there. And once if it gets approved and it takes off and it gets built, it's gonna make a difference in the lives of people that you're trying to help. So I appreciate you coming down and everybody that came today, and I'll look forward to meeting you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. Fesserson. I'm kind of curious, and I'd like to engage my fellow council person as to what some of the amendments might be in the resolution that we might consider next week then. So, Ms. Johnson, what are some of the issues in the resolution that we might see changed or proposed to be changed next week?
I think our president has already identified those. Again, this project is a good project and it's very much needed in the community. However, as a representative for District 2, when I ran on my campaign, I spoke about transparency. I'm sorry, when this was marketed to our community, it was not marketed that there would be $417,000 coming from the Arpa Funds. Yes, Ms. Kelly is right. On September the 12th, she informed me of that. But as Bernard mentioned, he knew about it in July. I'm concerned about how we communicate as team players, as we should be. Everyone in Omaha, Nebraska is looking for us, all of us, as city council members, as city representatives, to communicate effectively and honestly with one another as we lead this city. Somehow that isn't happening. That isn't happening. And when we're looking at a underserved community, communication is very important. The how really matters.
All right. None of those reasons were mentioned by the president as to why he was supporting the layover. So I was asking you had said in your comments that you had some issues with some of the language and how the resolution was worded. I'm just curious, because last week when we had a discussion about the bike lane, we had a discussion about what types of language changes we might see next week, which we'll get into later. But so I'm just curious as to what we might see as some amended language in the resolution besides the one issue that Mr. Fesserson brought up, and that being the paragraph 23 specifically in the agreement.
Again, Mr. President has already identified what is necessary to be changed in the resolution.
So that's the only thing that we'll see changed?
That's, to my knowledge, that's
okay.
the only thing
that's my question then. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So in addressing the one item that was mentioned, that being paragraph 23 of the actual agreement, It is a fairly simple change. It would be a simple strike, but I agreed with Mr. Festerson this morning in my conversations with him that I'd support the layover for that one issue, because I think this is, it's right to have the right document and not necessarily just amend it on the fly, as simple as that may have been. But I want to say I've in my journey in finding more about Mr. Murray and his mission and all the support he has, and first learning about this, earlier in the year, and then watching it progress to planning board and now eventually to us. I'm sorry, we're going to probably have, it sounds like we're going to have to wait another week. I appreciate your patience and your persistence, and the only one that's going to benefit from this is every citizen in Omaha. So thank you in advance for your investment, and I look forward to voting in favor of this next week. Thank you.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion, a second to lay over 1 week. Roll call.
Palermo. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 28, a resolution to authorize the Finance Department to pay an amount of $450,000 from the city's allotment of Arpa Funds fiscal year 2022 for the NOW initiative, and the planning director or his designee is authorized to sign all documents necessary to effectuate the transfer of the Arpa funds.
Public hearing on vote on number 28 is today. I think we've largely covered this item in the previous discussion, but we can hold the public hearing for public hearings purposes. Are there any proponents on number 28 that want to speak? Seeing none. Any opponents? Seeing none, public hearing's closed. No further lights. Oh, Ms. Johnson, your light's on. There's a motion and a second to lay over 1 week. Go ahead.
I move that we lay this over 1 week.
Okay.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Do we have two motions in front of us? No.
I think it's just the one.
There was one and the same, yeah.
Yes.
Rowe. Yes. Bagley. Harding. Yes. Johnson. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 34, a resolution that the Omaha City Council urges the Omaha Streetcar Authority to fully evaluate co-locating a permanent protected bike lane on Harney Street or another location in the redevelopment plan area, and urges Public Works to engage with Metro Smart Cities and Bike Walk Nebraska to evaluate the pilot project and consider options. A is communications and support. B is communications. C is amendment of the whole requested by council members Festerson and Rowe.
The vote on number 34 is today. Mr. Rowe, your light's on to talk about your amendment of the whole.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Last week we did have some clarification that needed to be done this week, and that was done. Basically, we needed to strike one paragraph that had to do with the streetcar authority being part of the evaluation of the bike path on Harney. That wasn't appropriate, so we had to strike that from the resolution, and that was done. And then we just clarified some language on the very last paragraph. And basically, this resolution, what it says is the bike path, the bike trail in the urban core is important to us, and we want to see it happen. Now, this week, just for instance, this week, the Streetcar Authority did come out with a new route plan for the streetcar, and it does include Harney. And so we need to study that to see, is there too much of a conflict to have the streetcar and the bike trail coexist on Harney Street? And so this resolution is basically saying, we're asking the Public Works Department and the Mayor's Office to do an evaluation of the bike trail in the urban core. It could be on Harney. I'm guessing that there's too many conflicts, so they need to evaluate that. That's what the resolution has said. And we also went on to say that we'd like to have an evaluation, to conduct an evaluation of locating somewhere in the redevelopment plan area. So if it isn't on Harney, could it be relocated somewhere else in the core? That's important to us. We want to see an east-west bike path, protected bike lane in the core of the city. And then lastly, if they decide that they want to extend the pilot program, if the group decides they want to extend the pilot program, we would ask that they ensure funding for that. And then to prioritize CIP funds for a permanent bike path in the future. So that's our amendment of the whole.
Thank you. And as the co-sponsor, I might just add that I support that as well for all those same reasons. It is important that we have this expression of support for the current pilot project to keep that in place until we have the rest of this picture figured out. And as the streetcar develops, where exactly that's going to go, and can they co-locate or can they also exist in complementary fashion? We believe they can. And so that immediate issue is the Market to Midway protected bike lane, and that's important. But the bigger issue and the bigger conversation we're spurring here is a conversation about multimodal transit throughout the downtown area and throughout the urban core area, this being just one example of that. So I think it's important we get this right, and I think with the reworded amendment, I'm hopeful this can be unanimous today. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
That was a nice segue. Thank you, Mr. Festerson. So last week, I did raise the issue of, well, actually, this is a good illustration of what I was talking about earlier, is that as in a previous item that we considered, it might have been an easy fix to make a pretty simple strike of language, one paragraph. And last week, while we were going through this, I was trying to attempt to do the same, but it wasn't clean. So that was one of the reasons I requested a layover last week, so that we could get the right language and move forward on this. So before I get into the language changes that are being proposed, you brought something up too at the last year comments. I wanted to ask Mr. Fanslow, and I'm kind of blindsiding you because I didn't ask you this earlier, but could you talk a little bit about the bike ped master plan that we're working on as a city?
Sure, yeah. We've put together, well, you did me blindsided on this.
Sorry.
That's all right. We are anticipating and fully expect to move forward with that bike ped plan, I can tell you that.
Okay. But it's something that, to Council President Festerson's comment about making sure that we have, as included in a multimodal transportation plan, that bikes certainly are part of that as well.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So then the next item I'm checking off is that last week I did state, and I think others stated as well too, that this could be handled right now without any council interaction or action. I think the current agreement that the Harney Street Bikeway Pilot Project Maintenance Agreement clearly does state that, and I'll quote, says, any extension of the terms in this agreement beyond the term, capital T for what the actual term was, shall not occur without agreement of the Public Works Director and the Mayor of the City of Omaha. So that could be, again, I just wanted to bring that point out, that it could be handled without even going through this body. But I do appreciate that it is going through this body for a couple reasons, and that's what I'll get into. Really, the last paragraph is kind of the meat of what's changed here. And there are probably about 5 items that I'll cover, and I'll say that I probably agree with 4 of them, and maybe not the 5th, but as an old president named Ronald Reagan said, if you agree on 80% of the items, then maybe we can be friends. So I think that's kind of a tip-off to where I'll probably be on the vote. But the number one is as we go through this pilot program, there's, in addition to having the pilot program, there has to be then an evaluation of really what the data comes up with, and I think that's really kind of that first one, of evaluate the pilot project and consider options. And now we also know that we have a more in place or proposed route for what might be the streetcar, and that clearly runs along Harney, and to probably avoid those conflicts and then take away all the right-of-way, so that we want to ensure that it's safe for all users of that, but have enough space for each one of those users, that maybe having pedestrians, bikes, cars, and a streetcar in the Harney Street right-of-way might not be an ultimate and viable solution. So that's two. Extend the pilot program, which is something that I talked about last week too, is that to say maybe until we got to the proposed route, which we now have, or maybe even until we get to the decision of having the streetcar, that the pilot program might continue. And most importantly, is the fourth point that I'm going to make, is that I am in favor of locating a permanent bike lane in the urban core. Obviously, it seems logical that it wouldn't be on Harney Street, but again, that's one of the items that, as this rewritten language of the resolution included, which was a permanent bike lane. It says in or near the redevelopment plan area, but I'm going to say the urban core. The last one was ensure funding of any pilot extension and prioritize capital improvement program funding for permanent projects. So, as I said, I would like to see a permanent bike lane located in the urban core. My understanding last week in some of our conversations, and it may have been incorrectly assumed or understood, that the pilot program would maybe continue in the current funding agreement that we have for the pilot program that's about to run out. So that was the one rub I had, but again, with the agreement on the others, I will support you on this.
Thank you. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I want to commend you and Council Member Rowe for the work that you guys put in and the discussions I had with you. This is about getting it right, and I think that's what the patience that was mentioned that we did here, and in governing, and as Councilmember Harding said, in the words of the immortal Ronald Reagan, 80% of something, and as a union guy, 80% would be great if that could be given at the table, but that's what governing is in democracy. You make the sausage and you try to make it good where you can get a body to agree to it. And as my good friend to my left, Mr. Don Rose sitting here, he wanted a unanimous vote, and he's been calling for that, and I absolutely am going to support this. And again, this is governance at its finest, where you have a body working together and you try to get it right. So that's what's before us here today, and I'm looking forward to supporting it. So thanks to my colleagues for the work you did on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, is there a motion?
Yes, I would like to move for approval of the amendment of the whole noted on item number 34C.
Thank you. I'll second that. Before I do call the vote, I see Ms. Harris in the audience. Is there anything you'd like to add, Ms. Harris, from Bike Walk Nebraska's perspective?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Julie Harris, Bike Walk Nebraska, 108 North 49th Street. Appreciate your support of this pilot project. A couple of items having listened to your conversation here. Number one, I think it's important to remember that a bike lane in the urban core is not enough. We need a network of bike lanes in the urban core for this truly to work the way it should work. So let's not just think of this as a bike lane that we can put somewhere in the urban core. Second, I would say that we believe that the bike lane and the streetcar can coexist on Harney. We believe there is space. And I'm not sure that there is space on a different corridor in the urban core for this particular project. The reason the pilot project ended up on Harney in the first place is because there was a whole lane of pavement there that wasn't needed based on the amount of traffic that Harney carries. And that's why we were able to repurpose that lane for this bike lane. I don't know that Farnham with the streetcar will have that. St. Mary's doesn't cross over the interstate. Leavenworth, Public Works has been telling us for 15 years that it's too expensive and won't work on Leavenworth. Douglas is a state highway, Cumming is a state highway and a truck route, and I'm not sure there's room on Cumming. So I think we should look very strongly at making sure that we can co-locate this on Harney. I do think there's space for it all, and we're happy to assist in any way, brief you on any issues with the operations or the evaluation that you might want further information on.
Thank you. I look forward to working with you on that. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Items 35 through 39 can be considered together. Resolutions to approve professional services agreement for residential snowplow inspections for the 2022-2023 winter season in the amount of $60,000 each.
The vote on items number 35 through 39 is today. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any further lights? Seeing none. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 40, a resolution to approve a settlement of the claim filed by Heartland Auto Chlor Systems LLC in the amount of $42,004.61.
Public hearing and vote on number 40 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. No further lights. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Item 41, an ordinance to approve the City of Omaha and Douglas County joint application to the U.S. Department of Justice fiscal year 2022 Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Assistance Grant Program application in the amount of $419,168.
Public hearing on number 41 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Amber Parker, City of Omaha Mayor's Office, 1819 Farnham Street, just here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents?
I finally figured it out, Mr. President. That movie Australia Down Under, how they was teaching music to cross the desert. So music is very important. But what I wanted to ask, I seen here, oh, excuse me, Donnie Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation, 4928 North 52nd Street. I noticed on here, October 11th, you folks won't be here. So this is the opportunity of a lifetime for me because I've been working on some projects and I was hoping the city council, since they would be off that weekend, on 33rd and Parker, 42nd and Grand, and I'm gonna be working with the school board.
So Donnie, we're talking about a grant here from the Department of Justice, right? Let's
Yeah,
keep it to that item.
I'm
please.
gonna help them guys get jobs because you and I have seen poltergeists, and we got a whole bunch of cemeteries at the address I gave you. We want to relocate them. The one on 42nd and Grand, 33rd and Parker, and put these guys to work helping us remove, because the people I talked to about the cemeteries over there says no one's gonna object if we move, like in poltergeist, and rebuild there for our medical marijuana dispensaries.
Okay.
Keep that in mind.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing's closed.
Item 42, an ordinance to approve a major amendment to mixed-use district development agreement for Pine Creek located southwest of 156 in State Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on item number 42 is today. Proponents, please.
Yes, Rick Hawks with Architecture Etc., 7021 L Street. I'm just here to reference if there's any questions on the development.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed.
Item 43, an ordinance to approve an amendment to the collective bargaining agreement for Local 251 to amend Article 20, Section 6 for ASE certification pay. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on number 43 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, David Grauman, City Human Resources, here asking for your support in revising the collective bargaining agreement between the City of Omaha and Local 251. Specifically, we're asking that you revise Article 20, Section 6, which provides for ASC certification pay for our mechanics. This was bargained for and agreed upon in our last round of labor negotiations. However, when we went to implement, there was some confusion and disagreement on who would qualify and how much they would be paid. So we have worked that out with Local 251. They've put it to a vote with their membership, which has passed. And so we are now moving to revise the contract. If you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer those for you.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Dave, if you got a minute for a couple questions. Good afternoon. I know in our HR committee, you and Deb had presented to us the reason for this, and it was to number one, get the clarification on the language, but even going back, the city was losing good mechanics to other entities. Is that fair to say?
That's correct. That's where the proposal came from. It's difficult to hire trained, skilled mechanics. We lose them frequently, and so we are trying to create both an incentive for hiring as well as retention.
Okay, and I've commended you before, and I don't want to be a broken record, but you did good work on that. I know 251 is their members agreed with that when they ratified it. So that will help the city. It'll help the maintenance of the vehicles and having trained city employees that can take these steps and get refreshed, and it's efficient for the city. So good work on that. I appreciate your work on that, you and Deb and
Thank
your
you, sir.
team.
Appreciate
Thanks.
it.
Thank you. No further lights. Next item.
Item 54, an ordinance to establish a Class A flammable liquid storage district, number A-162, located at 5808 North 16th Street.
Number 44, right? So the public hearing on number 44 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 45, an ordinance to accept the second low bid from Midwest Maintenance Company, Inc. in the annual amount of $419,259.57 to provide janitorial services for the Omaha Police Department.
Public hearing on number 45 is today. Proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Next item.
Item 46, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classification entitled Economic Development Program Administrator. Personnel Board recommends approval.
Public hearing on number 46 is today. Proponents, please.
Deb Zander, City Human Resources, here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Chelsea Ship, Human Resources Department, also here to answer questions.
Gerald Kuhn, Omaha Human Rights and Relations Department, just here to answer any questions you guys have. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. I will ask just one question with no further lights on. So this would be a new position that would manage our SEB and inclusion program. Is that correct?
Deb Zander, City Human Resources. Yes, that is correct. When we negotiated with the Simtech Union, they pointed out a number of jobs that they would request job studies for that we agreed to in the contract. One of the jobs that we studied was her Human Rights and Relations Rep 1. The vast majority of those individuals in that classification are civil rights investigators. And then also we had two individuals that were, their duties, the SEB and the other programs, weren't described in that particular job classification. So we created a separate classification to describe those particular duties and responsibilities, and we did our market research on and comparable city research on salary and established this classification.
Great. I think that's important. And this is within the HR&R department, right?
This is correct.
Which sort of formalizes the thought that we've had for quite some time that it's probably best located in that department to focus on this program and give it 100% attention.
Correct.
Great. Thank you. I'll be supporting this next week. No further lights. Next item.
Item 47, an ordinance to approve and execute a cost participation agreement with Canopy South to govern the relationship with respect to the action activities component of the Choice Neighborhoods Planning and Action Plan grant.
Public hearing on number 47 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello again, Kelly Johnston Dorsey with the Omaha Planning Department. In 2019, the City and Omaha Housing Authority were awarded a Choice Neighborhoods Planning and Action grant for Southside Terrace Indian Hill. The action part of that title is $950,000 of funding to jumpstart action activities to show positive change is possible and underway. The city provided $300,000 in CDBG, and the Sherwood matched that as well. Based on the feedback we received from the community, the city submitted an action activities plan to HUD in March, and HUD conceptually approved the plan in June. Within the plan, there are three proposed action activities. The first is streetscaping improvements outside of AFOMA at 30th and U Streets, site and building improvements to the Upland Park building at 3031 Upland Parkway, and pedestrian enhancements at 30th and U. The plan also outlined the tasks, cost estimates, and funding sources. While this is all, let's see here. This cost share agreement allows the city and Canopy South to manage projects and flow our funds across our agencies. The city will manage the CDBG and action activity funds, and Canopy South will manage the Sherwood Foundation funds. Okay. So while this is all very exciting, we are even more thrilled with the recent announcement that we can take the transformation plan further, which we created over 2.5 years with the community, and the recent announcement that we're receiving a $50 million grant for the Choice Neighborhoods initiative in that neighborhood. Joni Poor, the Chief Executive Officer with OHA, and Cesar Garcia, the Executive Director of Canopy South, are also in attendance, and they are fantastic partners in this effort, among many others who are working with us as well. So.
Thank you for sharing that news. Big news indeed. Other proponents that want to speak today? Ms. Poor or Cesar?
Good afternoon, everyone. Joni Poor, Omaha Housing Authority, 1823 Harney Street. Certainly, as Kelly said, we are very, very excited about this latest award announcement. However, we've been doing some great work in this community for the last several years as the co-applicant and awardee. Along with the city, we are very much in support of this agreement and happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, Cesar Garcia, Executive Director of Canopy South, 2411 O Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68107. So we're very excited with this new agreement, new news that we just have, and we're talking to about $950,000, which are very exciting for all the things that we do in the community. It's more exciting now thinking about $50 million and how all together with the city, with your support, and all the other organizations that have been collaborating in this process, will have the opportunity to make a big impact in this community. I'm here for answering any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Address again?
Yep.
Okay. 4928 North 52nd Street, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. I was wondering if we supported this program, would you direct the planning department to explain to us how do we remove those cemeteries in North Omaha we don't want? One on 42nd and Park.
So this is about South Omaha, right?
No.
Canopy South?
Oh, this is South. I thought this was North Omaha. I apologize.
All right, thanks, Donnie.
Cemeteries we got to get rid of, and I'm trying to find out who do I talk to about this behavior.
All right, we can hook you up with somebody from the planning department, I'm sure. Any other opponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, public hearings closed. Mr. Palermo, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thanks, Breaker. Appreciate it. I certainly don't want to take away what we were originally here for today before the discussion came up of the other amount of money we received, because this is exactly what the neighborhood asked for and needed, and it was the work that's been put in by everybody in place for these problematic areas. So we know the work that was asked for and put into place was for the bigger picture, always hoping that the bigger picture was there. And certainly I can speak for everyone when I say, man, finally, because if the room was full, I would say, well, I've got 50 million reasons why everybody should live in District 4 right now. So I'll wait until it is full. But looking forward to the conference this Thursday. For those who don't know, I believe at 2 p.m. Okay. Sure, going to try to be there, and it's a big thing, not just for District 4, but the city of Omaha in general, for game changer items for folks and residents. So appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hardy.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple things. One of the reasons I'd asked the pre-council maybe to have the planning department say a couple words about this is really to give them the public acknowledgement of the great work they do, but also what it means to these communities. I mean, I think it was, maybe I'm wrong, it might have been 2018 when the initial Choice Neighborhood Initiative grant was awarded to the city of Omaha. It was either 18 or 19, but that was $25 million. And because of the success and the accomplishments that the city of Omaha had in investing that and leveraging that amount of money, I think went a long way in this most recent round of approvals for Choice Neighborhood Initiative grants. And it should be noted that there were only 4 cities in the United States that were recipients of this grant, and 2 of the cities got 50 million and 2 of the cities got 40 million. And we were one of the cities that got 50 million. And to see again, that leverage and the success that we were able to use the 25 million in North Omaha is just, you know, the results are just going to be, I mean, fantastic. And in addition to all this, I think with LB 1024 and other investment and other ARPA money that's going to be invested in both North and South Omaha, I think the prospects for those areas to really begin to prosper and take this momentum is very exciting. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to bring it up today, is to not only thank the planning department for their hard work in pursuing these kinds of opportunities, but also what it means to those communities that will greatly benefit from these investments.
I agree. That's well said. And you know, although the chamber is quiet now and all the news cameras are gone, that was by far the biggest piece of news on our agenda today, and by far the most impactful thing we discussed today. It is going to be a game changer for South Omaha and all of Omaha. So we look forward to hearing the bigger details and more details that we talked about on Thursday. I look forward to supporting it then, and so appreciate our partnership with OHA and you, Cesar, for all that you've been doing. And I was teasing Kelly that she's only been in this role for a couple weeks now, so not bad to have the $50 million come all of a sudden, right?
That role I've had for a while.
All right. No further lights. Next item.
Non-action items, items 48 through 76, do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and/or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on agenda for consideration.
Second. Roll call.
Palermo.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:26.